Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Red Raiders kicking in the door on the top 25. And when I say greatest Texas Tech quarterback ever, we're all thinking of the same name, right?
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 almost here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet only $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again, my man, and a variety of subjects to dive into today. We will get to looking ahead to a week that we circled a few weeks back. We anticipated possibly some football schedule release conversation to be had maybe this week, end of the week. We'll get back to whether or not we're getting warmer or colder as it relates to the search for that schedule on today's episode. Also, of course, want to get back to congratulating the man, the myth, the legend, the Red Raider, Patrick Mahomes, heading back to another Super Bowl. And you had a chance actually to visit with another Red Raider all-time great over the weekend in Graham Harrell, who was at United Supermarkets Arena. And I want to get to some of your comments there with Mr. Harrell and maybe some comparing and contrasting between these two who are, I think, at least within the modern era, the most notorious, visible, whatever you want to say, the most recognizable QB names that wore red and black. I think it's those two guys. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, we're breaking open the conversation with the Red Raiders kicking in the door. You finally, at long last, have arrived in a top 25 poll, Chris. We did it. We did it. What did we do? Well, actually nothing just yet, but it feels good to be included. Number 22, number 19, depends on what you're checking into as far as AP or coaches polls are concerned. Again, maybe to a coach or his team, I don't know if it means all that much. And it's been kind of interesting to observe, Chris, because the other metrics that we always talk about as far as team rating services have really loved the Red Raiders. But, man, it's been an uphill battle to break into this top 25, but you finally do.
Yeah, you know, I assumed this was you were on the cusp of this, and you know this is what happens when you put together a winning streak, especially in the Big 12. And now, you know, at this point, you know, so much of what you did or didn't do in the non-conference or didn't have an opportunity to do in the non-conference doesn't really matter as much. It could matter when you start seeding these teams and they start having to break ties and all that stuff, but it's good for your program to be recognized for stringing some together. It could be short-lived, obviously, with an interesting week this week as it relates to your two games, a winnable home game and then an extremely tough one coming up in Houston. But while it's fun, I mean, I think, and while it will be talked about, and it's something that the program can market, and you know the TV folks can, you know, hey, ranked matchup coming up. I mean, all the stuff that comes with it. I'd rather be ranked in some of the other stuff where Texas Tech is actually ranked higher in the net and in the Ken Palm. I mean, some of those are much more important to where things are going or where you're viewed amongst the people that matter. And in those cases, you're hovering around 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, somewhere around in there, depending on what you would look at it. And obviously the polls are, what would you say, 19 and 22, depending on which poll we're talking about. But
Chris, is there anything that's obvious or easy to understand for us layman fans out here that makes up the difference between some of those metrics that do have you so much higher than just versus kind of where you've been in an AP or coaches poll?
Well, like Ken Palm there's a lot of analytics that you know, points per possession and efficiency and all those things. And this is hard data that basically tells a computer, I mean, with a lot of criteria here, this is how good your defense is. This is how good your offense is. This is how, and it's been a formula that's been tweaked and borrowed and now used by the powers that be for 20 plus years. I think I'm right there. I think it's gone back that far, maybe not quite that far back, but you get my point.
Yeah,
and that's just, it's hard data. I mean, you're attached an offensive rating and defensive rating, just an overall ranking, and there you can dig in even further. There's a lot of the dirt in there if you want to get in the weeds on just kind of looking at every single thing, and it doesn't. Again, does it ultimately decide who wins and loses? No, but it gives somebody that can't literally, because that's the thing. There's media or there's coaches voting in these polls. They're not watching these games. They're just not. They're looking at a score, reading a box score, looking to see, hey, where's the game? Where was the game at? Okay, they play in this league. Well, that's got to be pretty good. Let's put them in here. Or they didn't lose last week. Okay, let's put them in this poll. I mean, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
The Ken Palm is more of a, I think it gives you a better feel for what kind of team, because I think there's some data out there that will tell you, like, depending on where your offensive and defensive rankings go, they can kind of narrow the like. There's a team that's won the national championship that you've been this high in each of those the last however many years. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you've either been, this good of offense paired with this kind of defense, and those teams like have won the national championship over however many years, or these are the teams that make it to the tournament or whatever it is. And then like the net, that's more of a, that's a bit different in that it's factoring in where games are played and who everybody beat, who you beat, who they beat, and these are updated all the time. And again, one's not better than the other, but I think that they use the both of them. Point is, you're pretty good in both of these. And like I'll just tell you, they've
loved you. It seems like this year.
As of yesterday. And obviously, last night you had the Arizona and Iowa State game. So that's really the only thing that in the Big 12 that will have happened without factoring this in. You're 11th in the net, which is updated. And you're quad one. Okay. You're 3-2, which a week or so ago you were at 4-2. So it can change because teams can play their way in and out of these categories and all that. So it's constantly updated every single day. So just because you have I think playing Oklahoma State hurts you as far as the data goes. Playing TCU may, in fact, hurt you. You could go to Houston, and if you lose, it may actually bump up your net rating. So it's just taking all things into consideration because Houston, I think, right now is, number 3 in the country in the net. Ken Palm, just to give you an idea, you're 11th in Ken Palm right now overall. So you're there's some synergy there. But like your offensive rating is 12th and your defensive rating is 27th. I mean, again, you're top 30 in both categories. That's pretty salty. And obviously the polls and AP and coaches poll and all that stuff have recognized your program as such. But anyway, there's just a lot of stuff that factors into this deal.
Kind of difficult to understand sometimes, but it's really been interesting to see this year what was a really big disparity between some of those hard data metrics and some of those that involved more human influence. And maybe now catching up. Of course, you got to continue to win games to bridge that gap. So hopefully the Red Raiders will continue to do that this week. We'll circle back around, of course, on an upcoming episode and get ready for the Red Raiders and the Horned Frogs. But before we leave hoops, I don't want to leave United Supermarkets Arena entirely, Chris, because I thought it was really cool for Texas Tech to give the fans a moment. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's calling the first touchdown, MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field throughout the game, and the app is super easy to navigate. And knowing that you can place only a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. Bet only $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Thought it was really cool for Texas Tech to give the fans a moment to celebrate one Graham Harrell, obviously someone still fondly remembered for his time as a Red Raider quarterback. And while another Red Raider quarterback who we'd like to celebrate for a moment on today's episode as well, Patrick Mahomes is in the national spotlight. It always, brings to mind comparisons about those two within the pantheon of Texas Tech arms. And man, they are one of the best examples probably any fan base has ever had to try and chop up and process kind of what you appreciate about your college quarterbacks, because you've got very different experiences with these two as it relates to their time in red and black and then the way they went and represented red and black or what they did in the National Football League. So always interesting when these two names are brought up, but got to see old number 6 in person over the weekend.
Yeah, and obviously last week, I guess we're just now getting to talk about it on this show. But last week I think he was, the announcement was made that he would be inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame. Talking about Graham Harrell, and long overdue. And that's exactly what I told him. I'm like, you can't tell the story of college football without mentioning Graham Harrell. You just can't. The numbers, the accuracy, the wins, all the stuff, and I mean, just insanity, some of the numbers that he put up, because that was an era where he was on the front end of it. And now you look back at it and go, that's just not really happening anymore. And the rules kind of dictate that, and just the way that the sport is played. But because his, I guess it was late last week, and I get a text from Graham's brother, Zach. And he said, hey, you still doing the games, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, hey, we'll be there on Sunday. I was like, yeah, weird Sunday game, but they're looking forward to seeing you. He's like, we're flying up from Tyler or whatever it was. So I'm sitting there before the game started, and I get a look down, and I said, hey, we're right behind you. Turn around. There's Zach and Graham Harrell. I went and talked to him, and I did not know that they were going to honor him. And I'm like, man, surely – more than just me knows that you're here, and he's like, yeah, they're gonna do something during the timeout. I was like, okay, good. I said, so you're gonna work with KP? And he's like, yeah, that everybody kind of jumped the gun on that. We haven't finalized it, but I think that's the way it's gonna go. And we talked about Keith Patterson at ACU for a bit, but I just and then he got to go out there and get his flowers, and they played some highlights, and he got a standing ovation from the crowd. And I just don't. He is the best quarterback that's ever played here. I don't have any qualms about saying that. He is responsible for one of the greatest plays in the sport. We all know that what that play was on a huge stage, and not just for Texas Tech, but just the college football in general. That is a play, considering the circumstances and the context, that is just an all-timer. And I think it has stood the test of time. And you have two of the top guys in the sport that were were the battery in that deal, and Michael Crabtree and Graham Harrell. But I'm thrilled for Graham and his family that he'll get the nod, because that's heavy steps, man, and that will secure his name being up in the Ring of Honor at some point very, very soon. Yeah, and deservedly so. Yeah. But it got me to thinking, like, and we'll talk about Pat in a minute, but it's because this is on that Sunday, right? And so it's on the same day. I see Graham. I talk to Graham, visit with Graham. Graham's celebrated and all that, and then later on that day, Patrick Mahomes just is adding to his very lengthy legacy at such a young age. And it's just funny because somebody said, man, I had somebody come up and just kind of playfully go, hey, Mount Rushmore, where does Graham Harrell belong on it? And I'm like, you can't, like, is that even like, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, without no hesitation for you. No, without a doubt, Graham Harrell belongs on that. And to me, much more so than Michael Crabtree would. I've always looked at this a little bit different. There is no Michael Crabtree without a Graham Harrell. You have to have the one first. There's a lot of good receivers that don't have the numbers, but if you don't have a quarterback that can get it to you and consistently and all the stuff, and so it's hard to separate them. But I just think Graham and that little tandem has never gotten the credit. Michael's always gotten a ton of credit, and he deserves it. But I just think, I think Graham, I mean, just record-setting numbers and all this stuff. But it was funny because, hey, Mount Rushmore, I'm like, sure. But, like, what's crazy is Pat Mahomes probably is not on there. Isn't that wild?
Can you have a Mount Rushmore with Patrick and Graham?
Well, I mean, you could. I don't know if that would be the right one, though, because if we're talking about a Texas Tech one, if you're talking about like a Mahomes one, and the Mount Rushmore conversation kind of gets watered down, and it's
it's January 27th, and this is a podcast. We might as well bring up a Mount Rushmore.
And it's kind of hokey, yeah. Which incidentally, I'll be going to see the real one this summer. I think.
Will you really?
On my travels, yeah. I've never
jealous.
been.
I've made one trip to the Black Hills and highly recommend it. And Mount Rushmore was not highly recommended enough to me. I felt like it was undersold. It was a lot better than I anticipated.
Okay. And it's much smaller. It's much smaller though than I think that I'm like. It's not this just overwhelming like massive.
No, people are going to try to tell you that. I don't know why. You're getting it too.
Okay.
People are going to try and undersell this to you. Don't let them.
Okay.
Shout out to Gutzlam Borglum. You'll read all about him.
Okay.
I think the real name was right somewhere in there, but anyway, Locked on Texas Tech fully endorses Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, and Dennis Conner and Christopher Cross.
No right. I'm trying to think just off the top of my head 4 Red Raider football players, and I'm just strictly going from my era because that's all I can speak for. So, Senior Sack fans, Golden Palomino fans, I hear you, I get you. But I can only go through my era. And I think, I'm probably talking about Handspart. I'm talking about Zach Thomas. I'm probably talking Welker, and I'm talking Crabtree. And I'm going to be one of those people that you're blaming for giving maybe too much credit for Crabtree in that relationship. But those are probably the 4, I guess, just off the cuff I would think of. And that's not broken down by any position like, hey, you have to have only one quarterback, whatever. So would love to hear from you in the YouTube comments or certainly from the Matador Mob, but that's interesting. Graham maybe makes it. Patrick doesn't. When you said Graham was the best Texas Tech quarterback or the best quarterback in Texas Tech history, I was kind of wondering maybe he was the best Texas Tech quarterback, but was he the best quarterback to play here? I don't know, because the other guy's gone on to sort of
and
the best on planet Earth.
And that's probably like a whole different conversation. If you just because I guess what I'm talking about is like just what they did here.
Yeah, the production, and I mean, there's no greater split. I'm really wondering like what other fan bases got these 2 quarterbacks that had that kind of split in uniform or out of uniform when they were really producing.
Because and then like the thing with Pat is that he's still so involved. He's facilitated like this Adidas deal. He's been involved with recruiting. I mean, nobody reps the brand any better than he does or is more invested. And so I almost feel like, gross, like kind of like not including him in that. But I think people get what I'm saying. I'm just talking about what they did. Sense. Yeah, what they did in a uniform while here. But like what this guy is doing right now at the NFL level, I mean, it's just I don't know if anybody could have possibly envisioned that somebody that is 29 years old is already in a position to be mentioned in the same conversations with like the Montanas and the Tom Bradys already, because he's nowhere near finished with what his career will look like. And to have achieved so much, and it's like, heck, man, the only place to go is down from here, because you've been in the AFC Championship game at least every year. You're now going to play in your 5th Super Bowl, 3 of those of which you've won, and it's just and people forget like, oh, he's already better than Tom Brady. Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls, folks. I mean, 7, like, and you can say, well, Deflategate, you can get in all that stuff. I mean, you win 7. I mean, that's, you're putting it out there. That's like, you're putting that old record. And I guarantee you, nobody would have thought at the time, this will never be broken. And it may not be, but Pat is certainly, getting people to, and here's the craziest thing about, and in this game over the Bills that they win, on Sunday there in Kansas City, it added to this statistic. And this is This, to me, is actually the craziest statistic he's involved with. Not being in the AFC Championship game or better, not playing in his 5th Super Bowl at 29 years old or whatever. The fact that, and because we talk about this with Coach McGuire and the Tech football team. We've done shows on this particular subject. Like, what's wrong, or you're really good here. The fact they have won 17 one-score games in a row is
That's marbles.
Absolutely mind-blowing.
Whole sack of marbles.
Yeah, in a league where there's parity, it's built for this. That's why the draft is set up this way. That's why the cap is set up this way. And
they're all one-score games, it seems like, and they're just rolling through.
You almost want to say, because if you flip a quarter, you're not landing heads 17 times in a row. You're just not. But
I don't know. You ever seen Patrick Mahomes flip a quarter 100 times in a row? I'm not sure.
I mean, and he might, but he's the surest thing there is in a close game, and that in a league that is just nothing's for sure. And that 17, it's not like 7, it's not like even 10. I mean, 17 of them is just
7 would be pretty good. If it was 7, that'd be pretty good.
That decides whether you have a good season or not. If you win, 7 one-score games, it's like, okay, we're a playoff team, or we're going to pick top 5 in the draft. But that's kind of what the range, and to do that 17 times in a row, there's clearly something there, and it's Pat Mahomes.
And I'm not even a Chiefs fan or close to it, but the weeping and gnashing of teeth over the officiating, boo-hoo. Cry more. Cry more. Hilarious to see play out. And, of course, we couldn't be any happier for Jackson. So I want to make sure that Locked On Texas Tech sent out a special shout-out to Jackson. And I guess all the Mahomes family, but especially Jackson.
I love that you work that in always. That's good stuff.
Well, I know. Hey, we talk about it for the show. I want to make sure we get it in. So
it's amazing. It's amazing how he's like, I haven't seen a video or picture of him in like 2 years. Somebody that's in charge of the PR aspect of this deal was like, get him removed from.
Oh, he's gone. He's removed from the rate.
Well, I mean,
I'm trying to get in with the big influencer here. I thought he was still. I thought he could shake it up. All right, now let me retract that. If he's not at the forefront anymore, then what?
Yeah.
Special shout out to Brittany. Want to make sure that's what I meant to say, that we send a special shout out to Brittany, and congratulations to Papa, Mama, everybody involved on another appearance. Worst seasons for Patrick Mahomes. I think a pair of overtime conference championship game losses. That's the low watermark so far. So,
it's just crazy, man. It's
unbelievable run, and hope to see it continue over the disgusting, repulsive, and appalling team that will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. I got to say that. Not a Chiefs fan, but I know who I'm pulling for already.
Well, and I will say this: if the Eagles were to somehow win, it's not what I'll be rooting for or anything like that. I will. The one small victory is it will piss Jerry Jones off, I think, and so that would please me as the Cowboy fan. You and I both are, but anything that get under the old man's skin a little bit, maybe motivate him to be better. For the team that you and
That's not skin. It's a layer of silicone. He's been dead for 15 years. That's an animatronic we're seeing play out.
It's like Weekend at Bernie's.
Hey, do we have we got Red Raiders on a Philly roster anymore? I'm trying to think. Zach McPherson, was he still hanging around there? Or he already been on the move?
I don't I saw him. I guess it was not this past season, but the season before last, and I think he was still on like their practice squad. I'd have to go back.
It seemed like there was an Eagle representative. I saw Tech tweet out the graphic with those on Conference Championship weekend, and I thought maybe Buffalo was the only one that didn't have a Red Raider. I'd have to go double check. A small dose of good luck if there is a Red Raider that's an Eagle out there, and like the smallest dose ever given. I mostly hope you're beaten by 100. I hate Philadelphia. What am I going to say? It's bubbling up to the surface. My bad. All right, Chris, before we're out of here, since we have ventured into the world of football back here locally, as we're thinking Texas Tech in 2025, we did allude to a schedule release on the horizon. First, today's episode brought to you by TurboTax. Texas was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now, Texas is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. And while they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed. And while you go about your day, it's all happening with no stressing, no worrying, and no waiting. Now, this is taxes with Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Schedule release on the horizon. Even talked about it possibly being this week or later in the week. So wonder if you feel like maybe we're still headed toward that or not. I know it is an imperfect science trying to nail this thing down. And it kind of seems like also there's some chatter out there that maybe that's kind of a problem for the Big 12, and they should, I don't know, spoof it up a little bit, spiffy it up a little bit, kind of brush up this release and not make it such an inexact science. I don't know. What's that about?
Okay, so just to circle back, so we're correct here. You know who's on the Philadelphia Eagles roster? He's on the injured reserve list. LaRaven Clark.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, that's what their official roster shows. We are waiting on this football schedule. I think it's been very quiet there. I don't want to use the word troublesome, but it frustrates it frustrates me, and I think a lot of people when you see all these other leagues of like, man, not only have they released their schedule, they've had fancy shows about it. They're popping out their fancy games on the opening weekend, and it's like they're actually, not only they released, they're circling back and okay, now let's double down and let's kind of highlight some of the big games on the big weekends and everything like that. I had somebody send me an article, I guess over the weekend. I think it was maybe it was like Heartland Sports somebody had penned an article, an opinion piece on just kind of how Brett Yormark needs to be better with the Big 12, or the Big 12 in general needs to be better with the schedule release and all these things. And I don't disagree at all to take advantage of because people are, I mean, there's a lot of people that are interested in this, just the order of it. What weekends do I need to be in my favorite college town and all this stuff, right? And school calendars are trying to be built and all that. And here you are nearly to February, and your schedule is basically going to start on August the 30th, and you're not real sure. And I think actually there's the game in Ireland between Kansas State and Iowa State before that even. But yeah, you're just bumping up against it. And I get your spot in the pecking order. The TV partners have pursed through the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're trying to put the pieces together and all these things. But enough already. It's like, I mean, I'm just, but I wish there was a bit more made of when we would know, when it will be, like, how is this going to be released? All the things. That's the part that I guess that we are, maybe there's something to be had from it. Maybe, can you sell the rights to that? I don't know. Just there's got to be something better that you're, and again, we don't even know when we're getting this, but it's like, what is taking so long, man?
I guess it's kind of lost on me that maybe the Big 12 should be or could be better or has fallen behind as far as the marketing aspect of it, because the other leagues' marketing of theirs is lost on me. It's just not something I'm dialed into. Like, I'll see a release, I look at the list, and then I move on with my life. I don't really get into some of the, I guess, the pomp and circumstance, but that's just me, which is certainly no reason to not try to go forward and capture some type of audience or whatever that's there for it. And like I've said before, the Big 12's primary challenge and the thing that you can't address is not turning, some of your programs that are non-blue bloods into blue bloods, unless you got 100 years to hang around and let that happen. It's the marketing of it all, really trying to be outside the box and trying to be aggressive and clever in whatever ways it might be. And it's not an easy job, but that's kind of the world that Brett Yormark comes from. So I think there's, really high hope that he can do that in an innovative way. This is just one small aspect. And overall, I wouldn't have a complaint about what he's done with the league. Obviously, I think there have been some great things tried. Some got off better than others. Still waiting on Big 12 Mexico, said no one ever. But you get the idea. If there's any little angle that maybe they're missing like this one, I'd hope that maybe they'd think about it next time around. But, in general, Chris, I think as far as the plan making aspect of it, that time does fly. And there are some plans that need to be made as we're sitting here about 6 months away from kicking it off again.
Yeah, because I was told by somebody that would know, the day before the Red Raiders played in Manhattan, Kansas, basketball-wise, I expect to get a schedule, or for the Big 12 to get a schedule out, in the next week to 10 days. And I think so I guess now I'm looking at it like, you get you get it by February 1st. And again, some of this is out of Brett Yormark and the Big 12's hands. I mean, the TV folks, they're ultimately get to decide, and there's a pecking order and time slots and all those kinds of things. And in that part has not even necessarily been decided yet. But I'm just like, enough already, man. I'm tired of waiting, So it's just I don't know. Because I'm ready to look forward to something. I'm ready to kind of see what that whole looks like. And I know I'm not the only one, and I know you're in the same boat as I am. But anyway. But we'll see how quickly we get that, and then we'll kind of look it over once we do get it. You got a lot of the NFL draft stuff going on this week. Taj Brooks, Jalen Conyers doing their thing at the one of the All-Star games there in the Metroplex, and so there's a lot going on. But I'm ready to see what the next edition of the football schedule looks like coming up this fall.
I can't get to overreacting to what I think is going to happen with a team that I have not seen even go through a fall camp yet until I have the schedule in my hands. And I'm getting antsy. I'm ready to get to the offseason overreacting. So let's get it on, Brett. I know you're dialed in. Thank you for listening. And thank everybody else out there for being there as well. Once again, Chris, especially you. Appreciate the insight and the time as always, man. Enjoyed it. And we'll see you for the next one.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Keep hope alive, everybody.
Hey, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the everydayers for always being out there. And shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes for a link there to a free 14-day trial. If you're interested in becoming a Matador Mob insider, that's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.